So thanks for coming along. We're going to cover the Uchi Uke or the Soto Uke and its connections. There is a very strong connection between Jodan Uke, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. We know that because we can easily visualize it. Upper block, there's your block. Hand comes across, up. Hand comes across, it can turn into Uchi Uke. Hand comes across, Gedan Barai. Hand comes across, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. But I did a Zoom session on Saturday for some of our local dojos, and Sensei Jason Beltoff asked the good question, where does Soto Uke fit into that? So that's why I'm referring today. We're going to find where the Soto Uke fits into that matrix of the other kihon blocks. Okay, so before I start, a shout out to the Patreon family. Thank you very much. Once again, we're in lockdown. More than half of Australia's population currently is in lockdown. That's not a good thing. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, if you're first time here, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get the notifications, and leave a comment. And I do my best to try and answer all the comments. So let me first of all just review quickly what we were looking at in terms of the blocking system as we have it. So first of all, we ask ourselves, kihon. What does kihon mean? Well, kihon means basics. With this blocking matrix, that's what I call it, Uchi Uke, us. Thanks for training. In basics, we start with Jodan Uke. Okay? Just watch as I go through it slowly. The hand rises up, doesn't rise up like this. There's no biomechanical strength in that. Pushes up, angles up, and we twist. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? Soto Uke, across the body. Just like a child learns to write with large characters, we learn the body and train the body in the biomechanical, in the neurological firing order by large motions. Uchi Uke, 1, 2. Look, body turns, the arm comes across, and the elbows meet. The hand can start down here if you want, can start up here. The important point is the elbows are connected. If there's no elbow connection, there's a hole. Okay, I did an illustration. Call this the quadrants. One day I'll know how to do it on the computer. Won't have to hold up pieces of paper. But this is the upper body quadrant concept. And the body is divided into 4 quadrants. And your defensive goal is to shut those gates for those different quadrants. So if something's coming in this quadrant, there's a roll. If something comes in this quadrant, that quadrant, the objective is to know what to do with those quadrants. And the elbows will always cross to cover those quadrants. So you've got to remember too that under pressure from a non-compliant opponent whose objective is to hurt you, things happen super fast. So you can't go 1, 2 and expect that you're going to be able to stop something. 1, 2. You can't block an explosive single movement shot with a double movement. Okay, it just doesn't work. 1, 2, 1, 2. All blocks have this double motion. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It should tell you that it's impossible to block that explosive single movement with a double motion. So that's the first hint that the basics that we use are representative of what their potential really is, okay? So once again, Jodan Uke. The arm comes down, the hand goes across, and we push up. The key is the elbows coming together. Uchi Uke. The key is, look, elbows coming together. Elbows coming together. Gedan Barai. Elbows coming together. Elbows coming together. Look at those quadrants if my elbows don't come together, the gates aren't closed, the quadrants aren't closed. If I do Gedan Barai without my elbows coming together, which is what most people do, 2,000, 20,000, 100,000 later, what habit have they developed? Remember, your repetition will create the habit. So therefore, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Okay? Elbows come together, down. Elbows come together, down. Down. Uchi Uke Gedan Barai. Perfect, in line with the quadrants. Elbows come together. You should teach your students and train to, above all else, bring the elbows together. 1, 2. Most people just do this. Ha, ha. And if you do the elbows together, you can't even imagine doing this anymore because your habit becomes to bring the elbows together. Okay, so we have Jodan Uke. Notice the elbows come together. Jodan Uke. Uchi Uke. Gedan Barai. Uchi Uke Gedan Barai. And they all essentially start from the same point. So it means the initial part of the block is the defensive part of the block. So you can't block a single movement explosive shot with a double move. It's not going to work. Okay. So with the Jodan Uke, there's the block. And that's the takeaway. There's the takeaway. This is never going to block anything unless you have time. You're in this position, someone comes over the top, you create the wall and come in and maybe block there. Okay? But the wall is still two-handed. All right? With Jodan Uke, there's your block. Down, there. There's the block. Uchi Uke, there's the block. There's the block. Look. Mawashi Uke. Shitomawashi Uke. Enke Gyaksuki. Look. There's the block. And there's your takeaway. Gedan Barai. There's the block. There's the block. There's the block. So I'm here under pressure. Boom. There's the block. With a kick, it's much easier because they're much slower. So when the kick comes, it's much easier to angle off and do the block that way. But the hint is, you look at the Jodan Uke, there's the takeaway. What's this block? There's your Soto Uke. So the key to find where the Soto Uke fits into the matrix is that the Soto Uke leads into Uchi Uke, leads into Gedan Barai, leads into Jodan Uke, leads into Uchi Uke Gedan Barai. The Soto Uke leads in and it leads out. So you're here, there's your block, there's your takeaway and control. Boom, maybe it's a grab, you take the grab off. There's the Soto Uke led into the technique. We finish the technique, now it leads out. But on the way out, that Soto Uke can become a break, a dislocation, a disorientation, or even a strike there like that. The Soto Uke movement. So the simple explanation of what I'm trying to get to is, in terms of where the Soto Uke fits into the matrix of blocks, is under there, it leads in. In a tournament, it'll lead into a counter. It'll block, counter, and go into a kick perhaps. In reality, it'll lead into a grab, a drag, a grab, a control, a grab, a strike, and another strike, a grab, an elbow. What the Soto Uke does, it leads into something else. And then after that something else, it leads out. So if you can imagine, someone throws the punch, boom, I cover. I don't have time to do the full block. I just cover. Take it away, control, move into the next range, and block. So you have the Soto Uke leading into the Jodan, leading into Gedan, leading into Uchi Uke, leading into Gedan, leading into Uchi Uke Gedan. Okay, and Uchi Uke Gedan is just like a Mayweather peekaboo sort of thing going on there. Boom, look, there's a Soto with your shoulder. There like that, take it out. There, come back with a counter. Okay, so that's the first taste of what I want to try to get onto in terms of the role that Soto Uke plays in the matrix of blocks. Zen brush. So I'm going to use the app and I'm going to write Uke. There's Uke. That's the kanji for Uke, or block. But Uke actually means to receive. It's often, because of the use of the word in martial arts, it now has the connotation of a defensive setup or a defensive situation. But primarily, Uke means to receive. So you need to keep that in mind when it comes to the blocks. And if you want to practice your kanji, it's a great app to do. So you can get rid of it there. Disappears. Let me see if I can. Uke. And the beauty of this app is you can go back if you screw one. And you can rewrite it if you really want. But anyway, that's a lot of fun. That kanji, Uke, the reason that's important is because it tells you that blocks aren't actually blocks. They're just a form of dealing with whatever's coming. You receive whatever's coming. So that's really valuable to know that it'll change the way you view that too. When someone is demonstrating a technique on what we call a fall guy, in Japanese, the fall guy, the one who receives the technique, is called the uke. That's what they're called in Japanese. The reality is, like Mike says, you don't want to try and stop things. You want to try and receive them, because the defensive motion is the beginning of a whole flow of movement. So if you stop it, you stop the energy flow. But the reality is, see, it also comes back to this idea of hard style versus soft style. Kokoshin has a reputation for being a hard style, but I'm adamant that it's actually a soft style. And what differentiates a hard style and a soft style is not how hard they train. It's the concept of technical, of their movement philosophy. And hard styles generally are hard, linear styles, whereas soft styles are circular styles. And in that respect, Kokoshin is very much a soft style. It just happens to be a very hard training style. And the tournaments are very hard, so this is why people look at it as a hard style. But in actual fact, it's a soft style that trains hard. So remember, and we've been to this, what differentiates Kokoshin is the three main movement concepts that connect. One is Uke-Gedan, which to my knowledge, only Kokoshin or breakaways from Kokoshin practice. Uke-Gedan, this circular motion. The most important part is here. So it's that circular motion there. That's not the block. This isn't, you're not going to block something there because they're not going to punch it there. They're going to punch you right here. So that's why there's your defensive motion. You're there, you're in this situation, you move away from it, and that arm connects and grabs, and then you finish. So 1, 2, whoops, 1, 2. Then the second one is the Kokoshin idea of shito, mawachi, mashi uke. Okay? In other styles, the shito uke it's a shito uke. But you wouldn't be blocking there, you'd be blocking here. So that movement once again becomes a double motion. So there's your block, there's your takeaway. In Kokoshin, there's the block, there's your takeaway, and the grab, and the follow through, and the arm drag. So there's your block there, there's your takeaway. Shitomoshi uke. There's your shitomoshi uke. There's the block. Look, shitomoshi, tricked you. It's not shitomoshi uke, it's Uke-Gedan. Uke-Gedan. It's shitomoshi uke. Okay, so they are part of the same group. And mawashi uke. In general, shitomoshi uke traditionally is done a lot smaller, but Masayama is adamant about the large motion because it connects there. He would make sure this large motion is there. Some other styles do it that way too, but generally speaking, traditionally it's done much, and that's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Look, there's the hand comes in. Maybe he's got the back. There's your hand. Look, there's a mawashi uke. Knock it away, grab the arm, intercept, break, boom, and continue on. There's your mawashi uke. But in Kokoshin, we practice it in a much larger movement because mawashi uke, Shitomoashi Enke Gakski. Shitomoashi Uke. 1. Look at this arm. Watch my right arm. 1. 1. 1. They're all identical. Left arm. 1. 1. 1. Okay, so those are the 3 determining blocks that differentiate Kokoshin from other styles, and they are extremely, extremely soft movements. They are circular motions. They're powerful because of the circular motion. They identify a style as a soft style. Did you see that guy from Karsten Warmald, is it? The boys from Norway told me about him, the 400-meter hurdler who broke the world record. That's one of the great runs of Olympic history. Okay, but then everyone in that race was a national champion, and he's leaving them in behind. You know, there's only one winner in a race generally, unless a dead heat. There's only one winner, and all the others get trailed behind. But all of them are champions in their own world. Well, it's the same with fighting in tournaments. You go to the world tournament, you got these guys who are national champions who just fold under the power and pressure of much, much stronger people. So you can take what Mike's saying there, the concept of blocking a kick with an arm, you can take that to another level, the concept of blocking a stronger kick with a weaker block is never going to work. Okay? So, and that's what I love about these circular motions, the amount of circular force, centrifugal force that you build up is quite phenomenal there. And just like Koken with the thumb at the base of the ring finger, Koken with the thumb at the base of the middle finger, to actually have the intuitive experience or the knowledge or the wisdom to determine that when it goes up, the correct position is at the ring finger base, but when it goes across, the correct position is at the tip of the middle finger. That takes phenomenal experience. And for Sensei, you know, a lot of this stuff is the circular base of the movement. And in Kokoshin, we've got away from that because in tournaments, you don't see much other than the Soto Uke and the tap down concept. You know, it's not like big circle. Usually it's just a little circular motion like this, tap it down and follow through. We have that concept that the uke is a receiving defensive motion. It's not a block. The idea of a block in your head is a stop, like Mike was saying. It's not a stop. It's a receiving motion. And you'll know, especially if they're grabs. If they're grabbing your arm and you try to block it in a certain way without receiving it and changing angles, you got zero chance. Okay? So the only way you're going to get those locks off is changing angles. They got your wrist there. If you try to break it like that, it's not going to work. You can do the Jodan Barai and use it 2 hands, but even the Jodan Barai, breaking the grip, works better when you change angles. Okay, so leverage is key, and uke should tell you that it's not about stopping, like Mike says, or blocking. It's about receiving, and the best way to receive something. I always use the analogy of the freeway entrance. You don't see freeway entrances with 90 degrees and stop signs. When I lived in America, I went over in 1980, lived there for a year, and I lived at a place called Mount Washington, and the freeway from Mount Washington to LA City was the first freeway in the world. It was then, I think, I can't remember what it was. I think it was the 15 or something like that, but it's changed now. But it was the freeway from Pasadena to LA City. And it's the very first freeway. So as a result, the cars back in the 50s were a little slower. So the on-ramps literally had stop signs. But then over time, they realized that the best way to merge onto a freeway is not have the stop sign, is just have the lanes merge like that. Well, this is the concept you want to have when you're doing the blocks. The outside Soto Uke merges into the Uchi Uke. The grip, they got a strong grip on you, you're not going to get it off. I mean, it is a strong, someone gets a good grip here or a good grip there, unless you have really trained it's really hard to get off. But the only way you get them off is by changing angles. So they grab you here. It's that angle change that's going to allow you to break that grip. All the attacks that come either start with a strike or a kick or a grab. And so you need to practice this whole concept of grabbing. In Japanese, Shihan Bobby Lowe's self-defense work and Sensei that he learned it from was gyakute. Gyakute is Japanese for hand reversal, if you like. Gyakute. Gyakute means reverse. Gyaku ski, reverse punch. Gyakute, reverse hand or hand hold reversals. But in reality, all is grappling. Okay, so Shihan Bobby Lowe spoke at length about his training with Sensei and the grips. They spend a lot of time working on dealing with the grips. Why? You watch the Olympic judo. They spend 90% of the fight trying to get their grips. And once they get a good grip, bang, the fight's almost over straight away. It is one of the major ways that a confrontation will start. Doesn't always come flying with a big punch. Sometimes they'll grab you and they'll wrestle around. So unless you can reverse those movements and break away from those movements. So in reality there, the beauty of working on grips and grabs and handhold reversals and the grappling, the gripping allows you to understand the movements of the blocks because it's slower. When someone gets a grip, if someone throws a punch, you want to be quick to make sure that everything's sorted. But when they grip, you've got a little bit more time to change angles, to work on the blocks. Okay, and that's the beauty of working with the grips as well there. It's the application's usually a lot easier to see, but it also teaches you how important leverage is, because like I said, bang, they grab. If they're strong, you're not getting out of that. Bobby Lowe told me once about the time that Sensei, they were doing wrist releases, and he came to breakfast the next day and his hands were swollen and black and blue, and Sensei was so embarrassed. He said, I grabbed you too hard. And Bobby Lowe said the only way he could approach how strong Sensei's grip was wrap his hand in a towel, put it in a vice, and wind the vice right up. He said that's the only way. He never found another human being who could even remotely replicate how strong Sensei's grip was. So a lot of these karate guys, their grips are quite legendary, and Sensei was no exception. Remember that the Soto follows up from Uchi. It leads into Uchi. It's not a large motion. This motion is like the child. When a child learns to write, they learn, there's the lines, and they learn to write, can you see, in large letters. All right, so they learn to write large. And then as they get better, they're able to write small based on the neurological pathways they carved in large writing. Well, it's the same with basics. Large motions, large motions, large motions, large motions. But under pressure, it's small, boom, boom. And what allows you to get that correct, cover those quadrants in the correct way is the repetition you've done in the large motion. You do that quicker and quicker, and then smaller, and then the next thing you know, you're there, and you're doing the connection between the outside block to the inside Gedan, to Uchi Uke-Gedan, Barai, Jodan Uke, and that leads back into the outside block again. And you may recall that when I put the post up, all those, Mike's written a book on Hojo Undo on supplementary training. Very, very valuable. I have to say I've gone a little bit away from doing too much grip work. I'll tell you why. My family has a genetic history of bad arthritis. And so I place a lot of value in keeping my hands flexible. I try to have strong hands, but not any grip work that excessively strains the tendons. I try to avoid. That is there's the beginning of my arthritis. But all my other fingers are very still very healthy, thank heavens. So I try to avoid a lot of that stuff. Anything that overly stresses the connective tissue concerns me a little bit because of my family history. But everyone else, by all means, get into that. Okay. And you may remember on the Instagram for this particular session. My daughter, who does my Instagram, I gave her a picture of Uchi Uke. It's this movement here. Well, that movement, Uchi Uke, is simply a Soto Uke, but dealing with the lower quadrant. Remember, we talked about the 4 quadrants. There's the 4 quadrants. Oops. So Soto Uke, continuing on, turns into Uchi Uke. 1, 2, and then you follow through. In the kata, it's that, which very well may be tap the hand down, grab the arm, pull through. It also could be tap the hand down, grab the throat, which I've actually used, and follow up with a nice elbow. That works really well as well. What's this video we're looking at here? Let me just see if I can go back. So you've got something better to look at here. There. The Soto Uke becomes, or Saya Uke becomes Gedan Barai when you're dealing with the lower quadrant. But Soto Uke or Saya Uke, Nukite becomes an arm drag, Nukite becomes a throat grab leading into an elbow. Nukite becomes a thumb in the eye. It just depends on the degree that you have to deal with. So, and again, which part of the arm blocks? Well, generally speaking, speed techniques are blocked with your fingertips. It's like a knife. You have a knife that's like that, and if you're chopping pumpkin, you're using the heel of the knife. But when you're chopping mushrooms or leek or something, it's just ba 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 ba, and you use the tip of it. Well, it's the same. When you're dealing with strong movement and someone grabs you, you're not going to get that powerful grip off with your hand. You're going to have to use your whole hand or rip over and pull and use the strongest part of your arm. Generally speaking, against speed techniques, as long as you move, you can tap down and use your hands. So the arm is like the knife with the tip of the knife here all the way down, and the height of it. Well, look, when you do your basics, the wrist, the correct height is the shoulder height for the wrist. Well, why is that? Because now when I open my hands, look, that's the correct height. See how my wrist is at shoulder height? In basics, it's there. We open that. We're at the correct height to cover the techniques with your fingertips. Okay, when you train with gloves, you develop a false sense of security because you roll your fist, but you've got this glove. Everything's different with gloves on. So don't imagine that techniques that you use when you've got gloves on is going to work in reality. It's completely different. Okay, so that's why the wrist height in kihon is very, very exact and very, very telling. So anyway, we talk about the elbows coming together. Any comments there? Please, if you've got any questions, put them up. We talk about the elbows coming together. Talk is cheap when it comes to the elbows. When you do the blocks, look. Why does no one do Jodan Uke right? Well, it's not showing on love chat. I imagine you meant live chat. All right, yeah. Maybe you'll have to use a bit.ly thing. But anyway, that's a pity. Maybe put his name up and people can look for him yourself. So Dino says, why does no one do Jodan Uke right? Well, I think a lot of people do, and the more you think about it, it's also said. Sensei has a book which I've translated certain parts of it called Ichigeki Hissatsu. And what it is question and answers. People would ask also questions, he'd answer them. And there are all kinds of questions. It could be a 15-year-old kid saying, how do I do with bullies? Could be a 40-year-old man saying, I seem to be losing my stamina when I fight with the young guys. It doesn't matter what it was, he'd give an answer. But almost 100% of the time he would say, train hard and you'll discover your own answers. he would say all the answers would be found in your own training. And it's like Musashi in Five Rings. When you read Musashi's book, he would go, train hard enough and you'll understand this. Or he would say, you must train hard to understand this. Also was the same. So I'm thinking, Dino, that a lot of this would come. One of the first reasons people do it wrong is because they never have to actually deal with a real situation where someone's really trying to grab them and beat them up or deal with them. You know, once that happens, you'll find you'll start to change the biomechanics. If someone grabs you, you go, it's not happening. Okay, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, raise my hand up there. That makes a difference. So, you know, like also says, without the real experience, there is no proof. Without proof, no respect. Without experience, there's no proof. Without proof, there's no trust. Without trust, there's no respect. You have to find the answers in your own training. The other thing is people are just taught wrong. People, you know, going back generations, people have just been going, because they see the picture there, and they think, well, I'll just do that. But the reality is, it's the transition from finish point to finish point that makes a difference. It's the transition that's everything, because it's the movement and transition where it all happens. So I think that's very, very important. The finer the detail, the clearer the process. You know, we say that all the time. The only way you'll ever find that fine detail is in your own experience. I'm not saying go out and you know, thrash it out with a bunch of people. The reality is there's probably a really good way to deal with it. But you need to at least find training partners you can trust and get them to build up to a point where they are actually taking the position of a non-compliant opponent whose objective is to hurt you. Pad up if you have to. Remember, don't get used to using gloves because very, very different. You know, but it's that experience which will tell you what works for your own body and what doesn't. So anyway, look, I think one strike, Ichigeki Hissatsu, that's correct. Ichigeki Hissatsu, that's the name of the book. It's in Japanese. That's it. Yeah, Ichigeki Hissatsu. Unfortunately, it's not in English, so it's always been a real challenge for people to read it. But yeah, maybe one day I'll get around to translating it if I have time. Anyway, guys, that was my little take on Soto Uke. And if Sensei Jason Beltoff is watching, Sensei is one of our fourth Dans who has had an extensive career in kickboxing and boxing. So he knows a thing or two about dealing with pressure. But he asked the question, where does Soto Uke fit in the matrix? Okay, they're my words, not his. But so the matrix is this: Jodan Uke, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. They all have one thing in common: elbows come together. Look, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. Elbows come together, turns into Uchi Uke. Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. Elbows come together, turns into Gedan Barai. Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. Elbows come together, turns into Jodan Uke. So what am I doing here? You don't know. As long as my elbows come together, I am conditioned upon the attack. So if someone throws something at me, if it's a head punch, well, then I'll go into upper block. If it's a shoulder grab, well, then I'll go into upper block and a grab, or I'll go into an arm drag. If it's a middle punch, there's your block, there's your takeaway, there's your block, Uchi Uke, Soto Uke, Uchi Uke, Soto Uke, grab, finish, take down. If it's a lower block or a lower shot, bang, there's your Gedan Barai. Double peekaboo style, elbows come together, Gedan Barai. So the matrix is elbows together, Jodan, elbows together, Uchi Uke, elbows together, Gedan Barai, elbows together, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. But Soto Uke is different. The Soto Uke is the setup. Look, the setup to there, the setup to there, the setup to there, the setup to there. And Soto Uke is also the follow on after that. 1, 2, 3. 1. There's the block. Boom. There. I grab the arm. I hit the elbow to dislocate, disrupt. Maybe you won't get a dislocation because they're not that stupid. You pull the arm, they're going to bend the arm back. Okay, so you might get a little bit of a disruption. Bang. Allows you to push down. There's your Soto Uke. Look, punch comes. 1, block it. Grab. Hit. Knock it down. Punch. Or knock it down, palm heel, or knock it down, grab, and pull it in. The point is, the matrix, I call the blocking matrix. The Soto Uke connects before and after. The matrix is in the middle. That is my take on where it is. In advanced grade, the pictures even show the twist at the top of the block. Yes, always a twist, always a twist, always a twist. Good point. Good point, Dino. Okay, Doc, very, very appreciative you're coming along. Don't forget Patreon. If you enjoy these, you're not a Patreon family, and you think you'd like to help, well, then by all means go and check out my Patreon channel. Just look for my name on Patreon. Otherwise, if you haven't joined me at YouTube, sign up, hit like, hit the little bell, all that stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming along. Please stay safe in this COVID. This new Delta strain is a killer. And if you may not like the idea of having to get vaccinations, you may not like the idea of having to go into lockdown, you may have a business that is suffering, and I feel for you because I had to shut my own dojo down, and it stings like a snake bite. I understand that, but we've got to do something. This Delta strain takes no prisoners. We had a 20-something-year-old in Sydney die from the Delta strain just yesterday. So it's a killer. So please be careful, be safe, wear your masks, social distance. It's a great opportunity in fact, I wish I've got a frozen shoulder at the moment. It's absolutely shocking, but I want to do a session on what we can do once again in COVID, lockdown, things you can do. Work your kata, work your deck of cards. There's no excuse. You'll find plenty to do. Thank you, everybody. Us. 20. He was 20. Yeah, shocking. Absolutely shocking. We don't know what else. Thank you, everyone. Us. See you next week. Us.